Okay, so I've got these 2 boxes of finished garments,
Yeah.
finished piece product, right fabric, right trims, all of that stuff. And and like I'm wearing it now. This is Peace Racket Club,
Yeah.
and I've not put it out. And I love it. And it's really weird.
So how long have you had those finished samples for?
Well, if I go back a little bit before and on the rack, I've been making piece samples on and off since I moved to Portugal. And then iterating,
Which was when?
Which was 4 years ago. Iterating like different styles, going, okay, not quite right, and wearing it all. Wearing it all and going, yeah, it's not quite me, but they're a nice pair of sweatpants, blah, blah, blah. It's not quite right for the brand. And it was yesterday that I pulled down the boxes because I was getting ready to go out, and I was head to toe piece, with the exception of shoes.
Yep.
I was playing tennis in 50 or 75% my own product. Like it's all there. I've got this really odd block of putting it out now, and I put it down to I haven't got the image to go with it, but it's a really odd thing because I've kind of done all that bit. The bit that we're talking about for you. But I still feel like stuck or
It's interesting, right? Because I was talking to Amy about this, and I was saying the production now, working with JC and D, who's doing the toiling, getting that shawl neck blazer has taken 3 weeks to go from here's what I'd like to see and here's what I've had delivered, right? Suddenly that's all moving much faster. And the weaker link is now at the factory. But I think that can be overcome because I don't think it's, when I say the weak link is the factory, I think the weak link has been the provision of patterns to the factory. I think there's been things missing. There's been things not quite right. And so I think with this system that I've now got set up pre-factory, I'm going to be able to overcome that and speed all of that stuff up. And I was saying to Amy, I'm always a little bit anxious about putting something out for sale. And it's this changing of gears where I've just been, in my own little world of must get this product right. And this welt pocket isn't quite right and must change that, to now I need to be really expansive. So I've been really, I don't know what the opposite of expansive is, but really internal in my own head, really small details. And now I need to be big and salesy and marketing. And it's a completely different gear that you need to be in. And I don't know whether that's for you. Part of it, I'm wondering, is you don't have the platform because you're so retail driven and love having the shop and the space and what that creates. Now, if you were like, I've now taken on the lease for a shop, you'd be like, now I've got to fill it full of product to cover that rent. Then that would drive you.
Yeah, that's a very succinct way of putting it at the end. It probably is. I said to Lucy the other day, I was like, I'm not worried about people buying it because, well, you might not like the style. Quality's great. I like the style. I think there's some really, well, I think all the pieces are great. I think it packages well together. So I'm actually not like, when you're in that space, I'm just like, yeah, no problem. It's the confidence of, how did I put it? I was like, it's not, I'm not concerned about people liking it when they see it. Or just like that bit between. It's the bit between. It's like putting it out there, and having a shop in a way it takes a lot of thinking away because you just open the door and people come in, and I think you've got something to talk about quite objectively. There's a location, there's a space, there's something to create from. Even I find doing calls like this sometimes, you've been doing video calls, it's a weird thing. Like the lid closes at the end of the call and you're like, okay, there's no one there again. I found with a shop, you never really had that. You close the door and then you go for a drink with someone and you know where you're going afterwards, or there are people around.
Yeah.
It's this odd
Yeah.
feeling of disconnection.
Mhm.
But yeah, but product's great. And I was like, shit. It's like it's there. It's the weirdest block. And I've done this a lot actually. I just pulled my headphones out. I've made a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy the process of making it. And then
Mhm.
I often feel like it's someone else's. Well, you do what you're really good at, I think. And I believe like that's a great way to run a company for me. It's like let the people do what they're
For
really,
sure. It's the ideal.
and it's finding those extra people. Great sales guy I'm speaking to tomorrow, and you're like, okay, that's cool. And then it's just filling in the middle bit.
Yeah.
And got the product, potential sales guy to do like this wholesale thing, because when people believe in
Mhm.
it, then it starts to take on its own energy. And also maybe
Mm.
being here as well, maybe being in Portugal, it's fantastic for making. You're not
Yeah.
expansive in the way you were talking about.
Yes.
It's still quite internal, you know, going to the
Yeah.
factory, making these samples. Actually, you then quite possibly I need to then be in the place where it's like, okay, expansion time.
Where's your
Yeah.
audience? Where your audience
Yeah.
is. I mean, that's why I moved. There's a big reason why I moved back to England from being
Right.
in Bahrain. Yeah, I mean, sure, I could say, you know, it's most of the time it's 45 degrees centigrade over there, nearly 98% humidity. It is not the place to be trying to sell heavyweight coats, of course, but it's also just therefore the audience isn't
Yeah.
there. And it's why I talk about going into London once a month, so I can surround myself and just, you know, have that visual input of, yes, my audience is here. These are the people that I'm making for. I think it does make a difference, but I do think it's that it's another friend of mine that he's constantly saying that he's lazy. And when you actually look at his output on a daily basis, he does loads, but it's like he gets stuck because he doesn't have the external driver.
Yep.
And I think
Yep.
an external driver is so important. And I think that's why I started putting out on Instagram so quickly on about Barnfield. This is who I am. This is what I'm trying to achieve. Because then I felt a need to, you know, to complete what I said I was going to do.
Yeah.
And I think that external drive is really important. And I don't know whether for you, whether one of the things could be to really be able to visualize it is to take flat lay photos of all these products that you've created and create like almost like a 2-page catalog.
Yeah, true.
And you're like, okay, here we are. This is it. It's a real thing.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, it's just a box of samples. And like we spoke about in the other podcast, how underwhelming a box of clothes is.
Yeah, for sure.
Whereas present it nicely lit, flat lays, and you're like, oh, this really starts to come together now. This is a thing.
Yeah, that's a really good shout. It's a really good shout. And I definitely postponed the shooting of product until everything's perfect. And I think it's slowed me down as a result, because I've then not pushed the factory to get that bit done. You know, a couple of things that are outstanding, and it just drifts by.
Whereas if you have that external driver, you're getting in touch with the factory and being like, I need to get this done.
Yeah.
You know, please get this done for me because it needs to get out.
Yeah, it's a really good shout. And it's similar to what
I think that the flat lay, and I've spoken over you again, and I'm really
That's all
sorry.
right.
it's I think that the flat lay is like the MVP. You know, it's like ideally you get it on models and you do like a campaign lookbook or whatever. But I think doing the flat lay shots is actually something you can do at home.
Yeah.
You know, get it next to a light source coming in from the side, lay it down flat, make sure that camera's in the same place every time.
Yeah.
There's software online that will clip it for you and cut out all the background. You know, so you could totally do that yourself.
Yeah.
And have this MVP. It's not cost you anything, but it's pushed you forward.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you find that when you do it yourself, it doesn't feel? Do you have that feeling that it doesn't feel as good?
To an extent, but at the same time, I think It depends on what it was. If you were to say stitch up a jacket, of course, it's definitely not going to be as good as if someone else did it. But I think with the visual stuff, I mean, that's my career. That was my previous career. I spent 14, 15 years doing it for other people.
Yeah.
In fact, no, I looked at it and I've because I still do some client work, so it's been more than 25 years of doing that sort of
Yeah.
stuff. So I can put a website together, I can put a brochure together, I can put brand guidelines together, and they should look just as good as anyone else's.
Yes.
So I know where you're coming from, but that particular example, no.
Yeah.
I'm always pleased with how it comes out in the end.
Yeah. I've always got the feeling, and there's something more deeper and psychological, I'm sure, that it's never worthy enough. Like it can be like the leather jackets that I made.
Mhm.
They're achingly good. Like they're fantastic.
Right.
And then I'm just like, not quite. Then it makes me wonder how many people have done amazing things that just don't put them out there.
99% of people,
Which is,
that's imposter syndrome, isn't it?
yeah. I don't know. Yes, it doesn't feel like an imposter to me. It feels like something else, but I'm sure it all comes into I'm not worthy.
Yeah. Like, what? Who am I? And the amount of times I've said that, I was saying that to myself, especially before I launched the Lawrence. After I launched the Lawrence and I was getting the testimonials back, and the testimonials were positive about the things that I was most nervous about. I was like, okay, I can do this. I can definitely make a brand. I can create a brand, and I can oversee creating the product that's going to engage with people in the way that I want it to.
Yeah.
That overcame that. But beforehand, I was like, why me? Like, why should I be capable of bringing a brand to life that people are going to engage with? And then something switched, and I was just like, well, why not me? And if not me, then why should it be somebody else?
Yeah. So there's something. There's definitely something like that in it for me. There's for sure.
Yeah.
And I think, like we were also talking about before we jumped on, like the distractions of focus with have all of this stuff, and then other things come in the way, and it's like, I need to do that for that person, or I need to do that, and sort of worky things that you can always, if you're not feeling great about the thing that you want to do, then it's very easy to put someone else in front of it and go, no, that's where it is. And then all of a sudden time's drifted by and you're further away and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So I think the focus thing is very important.
There's two things there. So when I met up with Daniel Jacopelli, and obviously he was the voice of the entrepreneurs for Monocle. And so I was just like, man, have you thought about doing a podcast for starters? And he was like, unless I can see a real benefit to how it would increase my email marketing subscriber list, I'm not doing it. And he was just super focused. So not just focused on, for starters, focused on developing that an email, like growing his subscriber list.
Wow.
Because he's like, that is what is the most important part of my business. And I was just really impressed with that, with that focus, because I think it's so easy when you are entrepreneurial or driven by your own thing to be that shiny object. Like, oh, this new thing. And as one part of a project starts to become more difficult, it's far easier to be pulled over to something new because you don't know how it's going to be difficult yet. And so you're like, oh, that's much better. I'll go and do that. Or even if something has a very clear start and end point. Whereas what I'm doing for Barnfield, what you're doing for Peace, there is no end point. You just need to, and it just requires more of you, and you have to be very cognizant of that and give yourself the breaks. If you're given a project like the consultancy work that you were doing, here is the project, this is the required output. Cool. I'll just work towards my part of bringing that output to life, and it needs to be delivered by this date.
Yeah.
Start and easy.
And I definitely think there's something in what I'm being ushered towards for sure, because that consultancy, I mean, we've had a few things within that people have left. And I think as these things take longer, they drag on, it brings to the surface people's insecurities and discomforts.
I think it's also as time goes on, the masks come down. Like when you start a project, everyone's being polite. And then as you start to be pissed off by somebody's behavior, the mask comes down. And so it becomes more fractious. And the longer it goes on, the more likely those things are to blow up.
I think that's something that I learned out through Album. There are some really fundamental things that often people don't talk about right at the beginning. It's always about how the money's split. I think that people have a very different view of money. But I was looking back at my notes of this consultancy thing, and the first thing I said is like, it's how the pence in the pound is split. I was like, as soon as we understand that, we can go and do other things, because that's the most difficult conversation to have. People respond very differently to it, because a start and an end date, or an hourly rate or a day rate, they go, well, I've done this number of days. And then for me, I've never had that. It's like you work until the project's finished. Well, it's risk and reward, right? You can start this thing, it's higher risk, but I don't pay myself an hourly wage in this, you know. You're the first one in the store in the morning. You're the last one, you know, and you're still thinking about it from close to open. Not only are you thinking about it from open to close, you're thinking about it from close to open. Even if you're somewhere else, even if you're on holiday.
Totally.
And you don't just send yourself an invoice and you go, oh, I've done an extra day there, so I'll just charge you for that day. It's like, not if the money's not there, you don't, you know, how do we generate that?
Yeah.
And if you've not had that experience, you don't have that. And
no, it's very different being part of a team and working on a project that, you know, with a clear end date. But then it's also very difficult because you're like, okay, well, do we base it on we're all on the same hourly rate, or the project is this much and it's split out 6 ways? I mean, I guess when I was running the agency, I had a rate for artworking, I had a rate for designing, I had a rate for coding, for social media work, for whatever. Like there was a different hourly rate for each task. And that's how I would calculate the proposal. This is a different matter. This is a different point. But I took that information out, because people would be like, well, why are you charging so much for an art worker? X agency is charging less, or whatever. So whatever.
Yeah. So people have a funny view of money. And I think that sort of circles back into when we talk about pricing for garments and the previous episode of tariffs and all of that stuff. They're so interlinked, and people's like emotional reaction to money, rather than this is how we operate, and do we provide value for that, and where can we, for example, making garments, you're like, wow, if we buy twice the amount of fabric, we can lower that unit cost. Amazing. Because, you know, because we can get a better purchasing thing. Brilliant. And people go, oh, you shouldn't overproduce. It's like, then you go, okay, we've got this extra fabric. What other style can we make in that fabric? Because we've got the fabric for less, so we can make another style that doesn't cannibalize that one. And you can very quickly see how ranges get much bigger, whilst wrestling with, you know, right on consumers going, you know, down with production and down with making things, and isn't the world terrible and everyone's out to get you. But you're trying to optimize at every level. Not to pull the wool over someone's eyes. You only do that if the quality isn't there. But if you can get the same quality at the same price, and I like the way I've segued it back into garments. Same quality, same price, and the story's there and the value's there.
Yeah.
Then there's no issue. The issue comes when you're trying to say you're doing one thing and doing another. Back into agency world. Senior creative
AI that we were talking about last time as well.
Yeah, like senior creative, we're charging for a senior creative and we've got an intern doing it. Well, that's moralistically not great always round, apart from you might be able to pay yourself more at the end of the project, or, you know.
It's short term anyway, because if you've sold the A team but you're giving the D team, then the result is going to be poor, and you're not going to continue working with that client, and you're going to get a bad reputation. I mean, it's all swings and roundabouts. But I was interested about, you said that someone had because I've really been looking at communication because of a particular reason. But you were talking about someone left the team without saying.
Someone left the team recently, but didn't tell any of the staff. What
Right.
precipitated from that, and it could be argued that it didn't, but everything that I know about when someone leaves under the cover of darkness, safety goes out the window and people start going, what is happening? And as soon as people start saying, what is happening? Emotional trigger, something bad's happening, I'm off. And then what precipitated was a large part of their small, fantastic team resigned.
Started leaving one by one. Yeah.
And you're like, as someone at the top, you can't leave and not tell anyone. Like, it's just not cool. And
No.
when I left Album, we were tired. And you say things when you're tired and exhausted and you make decisions.
Sure. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I told everyone because you're so involved. I think it's just really important. Like, you have to communicate all things. And I got that from the time I spent at Levi's. They had an issue with one of the washes, like they'd not been rinsed properly. So some of the chemical had been left on the jean, which then reacted with people's skin, And I remember VP Joe Middleton, super great guy, called basically a public announcement. They called all of that production back globally that had kind of gone out into the market, totally fessed up. And he was like, that's the way you deal with it. Like, you
100%.
just go out and really honest about it. And he was like, they'll send those jeans back, but what they'll think of us as a result will come back to us many times more in a positive way. And that always stuck with me. You have to tell people.
I think it's just good communication across the board. And I don't think that there's ever, I think there's such a thing as too much information, too much communication, if it hasn't got clarity, if it's not clear. I think if your message is clear, then you can never communicate it too much. And I think you telling people that you were leaving Album, I don't know. I wasn't there, but I'd say the fact that it still exists now, albeit under new ownership, if there had been that situation where you had left and then the rumor mill starts going and staff start looking for new jobs, it would have been at a situation where it couldn't have continued because you haven't got the staff to fulfill anything. It just crumbles. Whereas that communication allowed it to continue on.
Yeah, and things crumble quickly, don't they? I think when you're trying to build back, well, you can't like patch up crumbling bricks. You need to replace them, and that takes time and loads of effort and skill.
I don't want to take this analogy too far, but you've got to research the bricks and make sure they're of the same quality and the same rigidity and all that sort of stuff. And that takes time before you can start putting them in place. And probably you're going to make a mistake, put them in place, your foundations are going to crumble, and you're going to have to start to build up again.
100%.
And I'm going to stop that analogy now.
But it's a good one. And just communication. The other thing that I did think, when one of the things that I was trying to get through an Album, and we were always small, but I had in 2010, I was like, okay, we should be having and this sounds like really basic now, but there should be iPads in stores so you can just order your own stuff online, and in the store, you can buy it there, and then we can do it. We can do it. So why aren't we doing it? Rather than oh no, you have to go online.
Like a self-service kiosk.
Like a self-service kiosk, but we're in the store and it's like, there's the iPad, you can buy that and pick it. You can buy it now and then pick it up at Commercial Street when you go home, or one of the other stores.
Okay, sure.
And this idea of, because we didn't have loads of money, but to try and make things as simple as possible with regards to information. And I wanted to apply that approach, going, okay, you don't send out sales figures to all the customers on what we've done at the start, but you pass it in different ways. And just having this one website, because we had a back end and a front end, and I was like, we should just have one. We should just have a pipe. And we developed this.
You mean a back end, front end, as in you had a customer facing website and an internal intranet sort of stuff, right?
Yeah, okay. And in the intranet that we would tell the teams what new products were coming in, and we built this quite cool thing around Tumblr. When Tumblr was a thing, and each of the stores had a different color, and the store fronts were painted different colors, so you kind of yellow Beak Street was the yellow store, and then on this Tumblr it was the yellow square, that's Beak Street, new arrivals in Beak Street, they're coming in. And
Yeah.
but then the customers also want to know that. So it's equally as interesting for a customer to know the new store delivery that week as it is the
Yeah.
staff team, but people didn't share that information. And I really like that kind of flow of like, come in, like our store is your store. You have to buy, you have to buy the product because our
Sure.
team has to buy the product. But just having this one thing and it phased the release of the information to different people depending on who they were. So like obviously store staff, just they hear about it a few days before because it's important that a customer doesn't run in and go, have you got that thing? And they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for the people that were really into it, they could see all the journey, all the information was there, just presented in a sequential, natural flow, which kind of kept this conversation going. I don't really know where that came from in my mind to tell you about it, but I always really liked that idea.
Well, I think it's more just communication. And what it reminded me about is a friend of mine, Jonathan, who runs a website called the Revive Club. He's based over in Italy. And it's kind of like Taylor Stitch. Have you come across Taylor
Yes.
Stitch? American brand, but I think that they're the European distributor for them, or the only European distributor for them. So he has Taylor Stitch is one of the brands, but various others. But he has a tab which is coming soon. So you go onto the website and you see coming soon, and then when it'll be live in the website? Well, we're taking delivery in 2 weeks' time. You can't pre-order, but you're preempting the information, the sharing of information beforehand. But the reason I was looking at communication was because I'm part of this group, and it's for a brand, and they do courses and they do events and products as well. And someone put up a message. It's a very quiet group, and it's of past attendees of some of the events. And someone put up a message saying, I can't wait for the event in 2 weeks' time. It's all, really looking forward to it, booked off all the time and really looking forward to it. Someone else got back and said, I think that's been pushed back. It's not this month. It's happening in 3 months' time. Back and forth about them going back and saying, I haven't received any emails. Someone else saying, yes, we've got this email. And if you look up on the website. So obviously this person hadn't received the email to tell them that the event that they'd booked had been pushed back by 3 months. They'd booked non-refundable hotel, non-refundable car rental, taking the time off work, all that sort of stuff. And I couldn't help but I was just sat there thinking, this is a brand and an organization that sells courses on email marketing and how important email marketing is for brands. But my experience with them has always been really poor from a customer communication point of view. So it's kind of like they're not walking the walk. And then as I was thinking that, someone else put up a message and said, look, this is possibly an unpopular opinion, but for a company that espouses email marketing so much and does a lot of email actually does do a lot of email marketing on behalf of their own brands, but it's all one way. There's no, the after sales communication is quite poor. And this might be quite an unpopular opinion, but then kind of listed out all of this sort of stuff. And honestly, it was a treasure trove of feedback for the brand to see this from their customers and to see this group of hardcore followers who are on the WhatsApp group responding and saying, yeah, this is. But what I realized is that in 4 years of being on that group, this is the first time that I've heard anyone giving negative feedback. And I think it's almost like a fear. You don't want the founders, the owners, the people running the brand to think badly of you. So they're not getting the feedback that they desperately need. Hey guys, you're not walking the walk. You're telling us one thing. You're espousing community and how important it is, but you're not supporting it and you're not communicating it with us. That's been, as I say, that's been 4 years of being on that group, and lots of us, I think, thinking that and it not getting back to you. And it's like, how do you put yourself in a position? Is it just about how you communicate out to your customers, and everyone around you, customers, people working for you, whatever, where you're just like, please, it's so important to me that that I know exactly what you think. And if I'm getting something wrong, please tell me, because it makes this business sustainable if I know what's going wrong and I can do something about it quickly.
This is a topic and a half, isn't it? Because it almost matters and it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are loads of layers and parallel universes with all of this. Almost it does matter and it doesn't matter, because there are many brands that I know of. I always like Instagram comments when there have been new drops, and the number of hot brands that have, they're like, wow, we've sold it. It's totally sold out. This is amazing. Thanks to everyone. And then you go into comments, it's like, still haven't received my order. You've taken the money and it's been 2 weeks and nothing's arrived. Because they're the ones that I'm interested in. Looking at the lifestyles that these specific brands live, I don't think they're bothered that people haven't received the. They seem to have a great time.
Oh, God.
But then you're like in big companies, and I had an experience with, I bought loose a pair of shoes, super great, like, I guess luxury brand. Sent them back because I needed a different size or something. After 2 weeks, I hadn't heard anything.
Yeah.
Emailed them. Nothing back. Started to go online a bit. And it's a dangerous thing when you go online about anything, when you're kind of triggered going, but they haven't got back to me. And, I just want to know. It turned out that in transit somewhere, and when we spoke to UPS, they were like, we would not have picked up an empty box, because it would have been flagged in our system here, and here. Turns out,
because they weigh it.
Turns out it was the driver before drop off.
Right.
Or someone within. It was never known, but it was like from the moment it landed in Paris, it was all the way through. It was the correct weight until this point, which is the point of delivery or being received. And they wouldn't have contacted me.
No. It was almost like too difficult. So just like, it's too difficult to deal with. We'll put it in the too hard basket.
Yeah, but I took it as, you don't trust your customers to say, look, this has come back and there's nothing in the box.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, guilty. And so it took me, and I was really pissed, because I was like, so you don't trust any of your customers sending stuff back?
Yeah. Yeah.
And just the communication, like they couldn't get their head around it. It's like, you either think all of your customers are crooks.
Yeah.
And I think brands don't know how to respond to people. They'd like to respond to people on the whole.
That's where you need standard operating procedures in place.
But even standard operating procedures, people aren't good with dealing with other people. It's a real skill when you find someone that is brilliant with a person.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, for sure.
It's epic. And when I was at uni, or between uni and going into the real world, I wanted to be a pro climber. So I kind of got this job in a call center. It was amazing, because the call center, but it was Ticketmaster, and the level of training was brilliant. And I became really good on a phone and really good with a problem, because people would be wanting tickets. And they'd be wanting tickets fast. And also I got this weird, like Liam Neeson-esque skill in knowing all seat configurations in most venues around the country and directions to them. It was so totally random.
Yeah.
To the point where I was with a girlfriend in London, and on the tube, and someone asked where, like, I don't know, some theatre was, the Dominion Theatre, and I just, like, it was just been ingrained into me, just like gave him the full spiel. And I hadn't been there for like 3 years, but I was like, turn left out of here, did this. And she was like, why do you know that? And I was like, I didn't think I did know that anymore. Don't ask. I've had secret training. But it's a real skill to deal with people.
And the perfect example of this is actually, so one of the founders is on the WhatsApp group that I was talking about. And it would have been very interesting. I don't think the people talking, because they never speak, they never comment, there's no engagement. And so I think that they'd forgotten that they were there. And I think it would have been really interesting to see where it had gone if they hadn't said anything. But what they said was, we're really sorry, great, and we'll look into why this happened. well, if I'm that person who's taken the time off, who has non-refundable hotels, non-refundable car rental, I don't care what happened internally. That's for you to sort out, but that is not a solution. I don't
Yeah.
care. So at the end of the day, I know there'll be less than 100 people going to this event. Well, okay, you email. That's one thing. But also, if you have the email marketing prowess that I know that you do because you're selling email marketing courses and your email marketing itself is very good, I know you're using something like Klaviyo or whatever, and you can see who's opened the emails, what's going on. And either way, they've bought tickets, you have their contact details. For something like that, it's a call. You have to call them. And I don't care how lean you're running. Like if you're running events and you're just sending out an email and assuming that that's enough to have moved everything, it's just not. And it's that, as I say, it's knowing what is appropriate to communicate to your customers. And as you know, like as I say, I don't I get really uptight on behalf of the people because I didn't have a ticket, but getting uptight on their behalf because I don't care. That's your internal problem.
Yeah. It is, and people, I do put it down to people aren't very good with dealing with people, and it's
Yeah.
not seen
Yeah.
as it's not seen as a necessary skill.
So important. It's like I always talk about how important I think it is that everybody, they talk about national service, but doing a year in service, working in a cafe, working in a shop, doing something, so that you're not that dick who calls up and just takes it out on the staff, on the floor, and doesn't say please, doesn't say thank you, gets it, whatever. It's that sort of thing. If you haven't experienced it, you're way more likely to behave in a way that isn't conducive to a good relationship.
What I'm realizing more and more for me is I love actually speaking to people. That's the bit, like doing this, doing the other podcast, the talking, like even peace. It's all in the it's all in the talking actually, and you get to know these people, and then they know, and then they become great advocates of the thing that you do. Probably with social, I find that it feels too one way, and that sort of doesn't really interest me in the same way, because even this is us having conversation and we're recording it for me, in my eyes, rather than you do magic with it and then it goes out and it becomes clips and all these things for other people to listen. But I want to be in the same room as people. Like,
oh God, yeah. One of the things that I've realized is that just as I did just now, and I mentioned before, I know that I talk over you. I know that I interrupt
always.
you. And it's something, always, I'm such a bastard. But it's something about not being in the same room. Because when we hang out, I don't do it. Well, but it's as much. I don't do it as much. But I think it's because it's it's those little subtle body movement things. Okay, I understand James is coming to the end of his conversation, his end of his sentence now. Not he's taking a break whilst he's thinking about the next thing that he's going to say, and I'm not clocking the differences between the two. But what you were talking, like, that's why community is such an important thing with Barnfield, and I know with you with Peace, where it's just like I want it to be a platform where it brings people together, and I get to have cool conversations and meet interesting people who are buoyant and excited about what we're doing.
Yeah. It sort of comes back to product to me, because I know we're making product, and all of these points for me, and some people will be like, oh, it's just clothes and you're banging out. I disagree with that. For me, when you're making a brand, there are all of these little bits that you put in there. Little embroidery here, hidden label there, this, that, which is the subtleties of communication, like being in the same room with someone, like all of those bits that social media has stripped out, because it's very much clothes have become about, okay, that looks like an oversized t-shirt. You kind of miss all the sense of discoveries. You miss out the hand feel. You miss out someone showing it to you in the store. There's so much that you miss that when you're actually with someone, it's so much more enriching. I think that the clothes that you're making for Barnfield, they're a representation of you and how you see the world. And we've had this conversation in the earlier days. And the same for Peace. Actually, our view of the world is very similar. We're a similar age. We've, lived in the same city. We've kind of grown up in and around similar people. Some of our friends know each other, but the output is different. And that's a reflection of all the experiences that we've had. And I think that's really cool. That's what you're kind of buying into someone's conversation of their life and how they see the world, rather than having the same conversation as everyone else, which a lot of the brands, social media does seem to have made this world of clothes very much like the conversation about the weather. And it's like, can you just talk about something else other than the weather? Oh, it's raining outside. It's like base level.
Yeah.
It's basic. It's basic and dull.
It's the little details, isn't it? And I think it's the homogenization. It's like, and we definitely talked about this, like the same t-shirt, same oversized blocky t-shirt, same big logo across the back, middle of the back. And it's like, it is an absolute homogenization, but it's also what makes what we're doing. And you talk about the sticking point of like, I have all these samples that I'm actually, when I look at them, I'm really pleased with them, but I haven't taken that step. And I've spent more time developing more products or perfecting them or whatever, like kind of living in that world, rather than, because there's also the vulnerability. Like, and this was something that a guy, Frederick, who built beautiful cafe races over in Sweden, was talking to me about, and I interviewed him, and he was saying it's so much easier to do all the development and do the research and to do the talking about it than it is to put it out. Because as soon as you put it out, if it doesn't go well, then your dreams have just been shattered. Whereas you can live in this world of like possibility. Until you put it out, you can live in this really cool, positive, well, when I get this right, I'll put it out and this will happen and all that. And you can just live in that. It's understanding that when you actually put that product out, that especially if it's founder-led, especially if it is a representation of you, is hugely vulnerable. And could be that sense of like, well, then if it doesn't go well, that's all my fuel gone. And how do I overcome that?
Yeah. I had thought about a similar thing last night. But when we started Album, we thought, like, after about 3 months, we were like, oh, we're not driving around in Porsches. Like, but we're on the internet. Like, they said that you have a website, and then all of a sudden it's like IPO straight away, and then boom. And we're like, no one's seeing us. And I think that then obviously led into all the social stuff and the marketing and all digital marketing that you got into. But having a store just felt so easy and natural, so human. Scaling felt very straightforward, because you go there and you open the door, and people filter themselves through the door. You don't have to go and find them. They come in because they use their latest technology, called Eyes. And they that looks interesting. Eyes and curiosity, and they come in, and
that appeals to me.
And they go in, and the ones that go, not for me, but you don't hear, they don't walk past and go fucking wanker and then walk off. There's no like hollering or like that shit. They just walk on by. They walk on by, and so you don't really have that. You just have this. You kind of live in your world and bubble. And then other people come in, and you get the odd person that will be like, oh, that's expensive. But they've invariably come in with their mate, and they're just not into that stuff. And you're like, yeah, it's cool, but you're kind of in our environment. But they don't have the bravado. Yeah, I think I need to just open a store.
This is the thing that I find really interesting, right? Is that there's a couple of things for me there. One, I think that for me, the idea of opening up a store gives me hives. Like the sense of the risk and commitment there, and everything about the way that Barnfield is set up is that allows me to pivot within boundaries. I'm not going to suddenly start creating sportswear or something like that. But with the whole made to order, pre-order process, everything is set up to be able to pivot. But I think we're so digitally native in that we are just direct to consumer. But I think with that also comes when you have a shop that shows exactly everything I'm talking about, it shows that you've overcome that and you have committed into a 3-year lease, let's say, and the investment into that and getting the stock turnover right. It shows a commitment, and it shows a commitment to your customer base as well. And that it's so much more real. Because anybody, especially with AI now, can create a website overnight, have a social media presence that is banging out loads of content, and it could all be strings and mirrors. Whereas if you have a shop, it's that whole thing where, like I think when someone is seriously in shape, and they're shredded, like it's this ultimate demonstration of your ability to commit. Because you cannot hide. You are either at 6% body fat or you are not. And just to say, I have never been down to 6% body fat, no matter how hard I've tried. Even when I was training jiu-jitsu, I got down to 60. I'm 72 kilos now, and I got down to 61.5 kilos.
Oh my gosh.
So I had to be 63 in the gi. And even then, I probably wasn't down at single digit. Oh, maybe I was. I don't know. Anyway, segue. The fact is that it's this ultimate expression of commitment. There is no hiding. You cannot strings and mirrors. You can get good lighting, but you cannot strings and mirrors in the moment. And I think for me, that's a shop as well. You either have the product and it's getting people through the door and you're still there a year, 2 years, 5 years later because you got it right. Or not. Whereas it's much easier to strings and mirror the digital side of things.
I mean, the other thought I had the other week was, I don't think we should be doing what we're doing in the way that we're doing it, i.e. you doing Barnfield solo and me doing Peace solo, because there are so many things that you can just combine and go, okay, you just throw in, because then you can like throw in another brand. Doesn't actually take much extra lifting at that point. But the lifting that is taking us a long time is filling in the blanks, and the power of having someone else that you do it with. And this has been great, actually, just our conversation.
This is the best kind of middle ground, isn't it?
It is, but you need that other person, and then it starts to take on its own momentum and energy.
But I also have a fear, and it's interesting because I've always set up my own businesses. My agency I set up as a solo entrepreneur, solo endeavor. Barnfield is a solo endeavor. Of course, there are people as part of the endeavor, but it's me driving it. It's me having the conversations with myself. Whereas you, with Album, there was the two of you. When I look at my brother, he runs, his e-commerce company. There's two of them up at the top. I don't see one as better than the other. I see pros and cons for both sides.
I can't speak for the solo route.
Well, what's Peace?
Well, it's nothing at the moment, and I think that's the thing. If someone were to come in and go, brilliant, just give me that box of stuff. Let's crack on. It's great, James. Stop being a bellend. Give it to me. We're on. I'd be like, great. Like, let me kind of do my bit. Sorry for the profanities.
I'm enjoying that. It's fine.
I don't thrive on doing something solo. I almost don't see the point, and I've done a lot of that in. I mean, it's odd actually because I'm back into tennis, but originally in tennis, for example, I did prefer playing doubles. Like singles was the holy grail, and now I'm playing singles again, and maybe that's to show me that I can actually do it, and you just have to crack on. But you still need the person you still need the sparring partner on the other side.
Sure. Batting it back. Here's this idea. Well, what about this?
And they're not going easy. That's what I enjoy. I enjoy that two people making this thing happen, and you're kind of counter-punching and striking, and like there's this thing that happens. All I can do is bring me. I make clothes really well. I can see this group of people there. Blah 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 blah. How I get to it? Well, when it's me, I just walk up to them. I don't need to anything else, but it's like, okay, then you need the other person that can go, okay, what you're doing is really interesting. Okay, now they're wanting to engage with you more, so let's make it so it works. And then
Mhm.
so I've always liked that. You need a second person, not a number two. You need an equal, but both
Yep.
playing their own game and respecting their own game.
Mhm.
And I think when it goes wrong is when someone goes, "Oh, I could do what you're doing." And it's like, you could, but not as well. It's like you
Sure.
could hit a
Yeah.
great, first serve, but your serve isn't
Mhm.
great. Your second serve is much better.
Right.
Don't try and do what I do, because if you try and do what I do, it will be a version of what I do, and it won't be as good. And then if it's better,
Which is again what we spoke about
yeah,
last
and
time.
if it's
Yeah.
better than what I do, it's because you do that really well. And then we've just raised the game again, because actually, if it drops to my level, it's still great, but we're
Yeah.
going up. I've got to return the ball. I've got to be able to match that amazing thing with something else
Sure.
really steady, solid, safe, whatever. So it
Mhm.
not neutralizes it, but brings us into the game. And I think that's, for me, not to then use a tennis reference, but I don't consider myself, consider myself just in training, weirdly, at the moment with peace. Because as soon as that person comes in, and you have to go out and find that person and have conversations. Also, other people have to go, "But that's really good. Let's go and do it." And to
Yeah.
go back into tennis again, I always say to people, when we're training, I'm always like, "Great shot," or "His serve's really good," because you never have feedback. No one ever gives you feedback on how that shot feels coming back.
Mhm.
So you're kind of in the dark all the time, because this ego thing
Yeah.
gets in the way, and they don't want to talk to you about it. They don't want to say, "That was amazing. That was absolute. You hit that like a absolute tank." And it's,
Yeah.
but you want to hear that. You want to know, because that builds confidence. And then
Yeah.
you start building this energy and momentum. And then it's like, cool, okay, let's go. Let's enter tournaments. Let's open this shop, because da da
Yeah.
da, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
It's like, I know you're not going to turn up and paint it 6 a.m. in the morning. I've got that. Don't, come at
Sure.
9. Don't expect you to do what I do. You do what you do. You rest up and do what you do. If
Mhm.
you don't turn up and do what you do, out.
Then there's a
Yeah.
problem. Sure.
But invariably you do, because you want to.
Well, yeah, and I think that's where partnerships work really well is, again, comes back to communication. You have to have that clear communication as to what roles you're expected to fulfill, where you where you might be falling
Yeah.
down. And I think that not many people like to face up to confrontation.
Yes.
And it depends on the intensity of the stakes as to how much something feels like a conversation or a confrontation. Like if you have someone who is a number 2 or even a number 10, then having a conversation with that person and being like, "Hey, you haven't come into the store on time 3 days in a row. Once more, and you're going to be replaced. We've got a lot of faith in you. We think you can do well, but timekeeping is really important." That's an easy conversation. Having a conversation with someone who is a partner in the same sort of way, where you're like, "Listen, James, you really haven't done this, that, and the other, and it's getting to me, and our agreement was that this is what you would do and this is what I would do." High stakes
Yeah.
conversations.
And I've been that person, being told that you haven't turned up and done all the things that
Okay.
and offer my response is usually, it's like, yes, because that's what you do really well.
Right.
But the things that I do really well, let me do them.
That comes down to the conversation at the beginning, doesn't it? Of like setting out what roles you're going to fulfill and agreeing that those are right.
One isn't better than the other.
One job that you're fulfilling rather than someone else.
Yeah, like someone's brilliant at, I don't know, project managing the space, but they're terrible at knowing what that space is going to look like to be able to project manage.
Sure.
Those are two very different skills.
Mm-hmm.
Project manager, and there will be some very skilled ones, but the person who's very good at that, if they're going, "Oh, I could do what you do," it's like, cool, no worries, crack on then, because then you can do the whole thing. And they're like, "But, well, I went for the coffee in the morning that you always do, and I walked around just like listening to weird stuff or looking at pictures. Still don't know what I'm doing." It's like, yes, because that's kind of the process of me coming up with an idea to then be able to brief a design team to go, "This is what we want, this is where we're going."
Yeah.
It's not doing nothing. It's just different.
Yeah.
It's just different. But when you have that view of, oh, they're not doing anything, I'm doing all the hard work, that other person isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been in loads of those things because I can be quite whimsical. I mean, you've worked with me. I can be quite whimsical. I make really good stuff. I do it in my own way. I'm even better when there's a little team that are like, okay, how are we doing this thing, that can realize stuff, because then we start to iterate. Ask me to write a deck.
Sure.
Ask me to sit in front of whoever it is or stand at the front and communicate that deck. No problem.
Sure.
But actually the writing, and Al and I worked really, really well together, and we never really fell out. We had different views of what we wanted, but how we worked was he was that guy. I mean, operationally.
Sorry, this is Al with
Al's
Album.
partner albums. Yeah, sorry. I'd say like everyone knows who James and Al were. Al's my partner album, but we were at uni together, and we would sit in the library writing our dissertations, and I would tend to just write with no punctuation. It was just like this
stream of
consciousness coming out, and he was just brilliant at punctuating it.
I've got to be honest, that would make my teeth itch. Like I'm a stickler for grammar, stickler for punctuation.
But how good is
all of
that? I've just given you material to work with.
I thought you were going to say, I've just given you a job to do.
I've given you like material to work with that you wouldn't have if I was like, okay, check out how good that grammar is and punctuation mark. You ain't got nothing on me, don't even come near me. But we worked so well together in that way.
Yeah. But I think that finding a business partner, I mean, it's probably harder than finding a life partner.
I don't know about that. I don't know.
Well, because
expectations change. I think it's constant communication all the time, and knowing that when you I think a relationship in any form is a ship. When you first go on, you're like, we're just sailing west.
Yeah.
Like throw in, like chuck in. It's like, whoa, you've got a lot of bags. We can't take all those bags. So you've got to offload some stuff, or I'm taking it, or, you figure things out. Over time, the storm comes and you're having like loads of banter. Then the food runs out and you're like, food's run out. We're getting hungry. It's only at those times that you're trying to relate to that person in a confined space all the time to like manage this thing through and really optimize it. Because that's a successful relationship. You've managed to stay together, respect each other's differences, similarities, work together. But you've constantly got to be talking. It's like, I'm feeling really low today. Like, you're just going to need to tell me to, or in water, heave ho. Like, I just need it. And then I'll get a second wind. But if you don't say that, it's like, fucking not rowing. And the other person's just rowing, going, why aren't you doing this thing? Why aren't you?
And just resenting
And then you get like this backwards and forwards. And I think it's communication. Or it's like, okay, where should we go? It's like, oh, well, I want to go west. Well, I want to go east. Like, both of them are the journey, but they're different. I think when you find a business partner, you're going, okay, where do we want to get to? I think you need to find that commonality, going, okay, let's build some clothing brands. Okay, cool. I've got this idea. You've got that idea. They're different opinions, or I want to open a cafe. And then you're like, okay, cool. It could work really well with this one. And then that one blossoms. I think you need to find out that thing that you want, what adventure do you want to go on with someone? And the adventure isn't just the destination of the place.
Sure.
It's going, oh, actually, this is great, isn't it? Look at all our amazing team that's doing this thing that we've put together, that that we've got some money now. But I'll go on another adventure. We've got a decent group to go on another adventure with. I think it's about the adventure and being clear on what that adventure is. So I'm going to go to another analogy because I like them. And you've pixelated, so it looks like you're hanging on. But like climbing a mountain, you can go on this amazing adventure, but you might not get to the top. But you've had this amazing experience the whole way up, down, back, and you're like, wow, awesome. I'd totally do that again. And we didn't even get to the place that we were aiming for. but I'd totally do
But
it
did you
again.
get somewhere?
Well, yeah, of course you get
But
somewhere.
did you get somewhere on your mountain? Because if you just like messing around at base camp, like trying to get your bags together,
Yeah.
and just packing it, unpacking it, packing it, unpacking it, getting out the door, oh, the weather's not quite right, then that's an adventure I'm not interested in. I
You
need,
got to go and do it.
like I'm constantly telling myself, like I'm actually, I've got the pattern for V4 Peacoat arrives tomorrow.
Ooh.
And yesterday I was saying like, for a long time now, I've been like, God, this Peacoat has been so difficult. It's been so expensive, and I'm on my third pattern cutter. Like, what a nightmare. And then I was like, but if I reframe that, and instead of seeing it as this Peacoat has taken so long, being like, it's taken this amount of time to get to the point where I have a team around me and we're communicating really well, and I've learnt this and I've overcome that, and the Peacoat just happens to be the kind of like the glue, the destination, as it were, then I'm totally happy with that. But if I didn't get the Peacoat released, not happy.
Yeah.
So I still have to reach the destination. I can reframe things and I can be happy about the adventure, but it needs to get somewhere.
But I think that, like, seeing the mountain, they're sort of different things, aren't they? It's like, okay, releasing the Peacoat. Well, you can release Peacoat and sell 300, or then you get to 3,000 and you've sold 3,000 of them or 30,000 of them. And they're different things. It's just starting and then going on to see where it gets, because in a way,
I get
you might go up that mountain. We didn't get to the top, came back, went to do another one, got to the top of that, came back down, went to the top of another one, came back down, went to the top of, didn't get to the top of the fourth one, but but it's just so much fun. And over time you become syncopated. Is that the right word? But like, yeah, so in sync with that person that you just kind of, the process, it's so smooth, isn't it? It's like, you know what the other person's thinking. You kind of, I've got this problem. What do I do? Like, like you're looking down, calling to your belayer or whatever. That is an amazing thing. But you're on the adventure. They're almost adventure partners.
Yeah.
And adventure, it's interesting for me how that's viewed. It can be seen as like really reckless and whimsical. Oh, they're just going off on an adventure. It's like, no, we're trying to do a thing. We're trying to do a thing. What that thing is, I don't know. I don't know the level it could get to, because I don't think you do often know the level that something can get to. You can have the level that you want to get to it, but the adventure is, how do we get that level, and going, oh, actually, or reassessing along the way. But if everyone's having a good adventure and growing as a result. And one of the things for Alan, for example, he might view it differently, but I was always like, where do you want to get to? Like, what do you want to do? Because in my head, I was like, I want like 500 stores kind of thing. And I remember having this conversation and it was almost like a question. It's like, I never really thought of it. Like five stores. And I was like, well, but you go about the adventure very differently if you want 5 or you want 500.
For sure.
So then you get out into this boat and the differences start to appear in a way. And there's no kind of North Star going, look, we want to get here. So we got to approach it in this way.
Yeah.
Because then we got to 5. And you're like, oh, this is a problem. Like, you gear yourself up very differently than going, okay, we didn't want to relinquish any control or any equity, but you then needed to, because we were creaking. Our boat wasn't big enough to be able to accommodate it, but we knew we couldn't build a 500 person boat or a 500 store boat. So you need to start to bring in people. Like, you start to view it in a very different way.
Yeah. And that's, but you, with knowing that you want 500 stores, you're viewing that giving away of equity as a necessary and quite comfortable part of that journey, because you're like, well, there's no way I can finance 500 stores. I would have to give away equity in order to do it. Someone who's only going for 5 stores is like, ooh, I don't need to give away 5 stores worth of equity. And so therefore that's a bad thing for me, that sense of giving away.
Yeah. And that equity thing, I mean, at the age I was at, I was probably still gung-ho going, could do it all on our own kind of thing, trying to make mythical magic happen. But I think when you know why you're doing it, it's much easier to go, actually, yeah, equity would be great for us. And then you can have these conversations that can grow you rather than falling out, and they often come at those transition times. But I think I don't think anyone does it solo.
Well, no, I mean, even when I look at what I'm doing, what you're doing, of course, you have factories, you have patent cutters, you have people, you and I like discussing things together. But what I was going to say, almost like as a conclusion, whether it's just a thought process or, okay, and we've talked about you feeling or being stuck, like not taking that step. And then you've also just told me that you don't work well solo. And so, I mean, there's your answer. So then it's like, how do I change that? Do you, and that you enjoy having a team. I'm seeing the first thing to aim for there is, as you're speaking to a sales agent.
Yeah.
So giving the sales agent what they need to really buy into the brand beyond, and having something they can take on to somebody else, because I'm great at selling Barnfield. When I speak to people, I'm so stoked on it, and I know exactly what I want to achieve. When I'm speaking to them, I'm like, this really engaged, really vibrant, like, and there's this, and the sleeve head rolled, and this is what I'm doing, and my great-grand, bringing in all these things, and I can bring it all together. You put it on a website, put it on social, none of that is there. So it's figuring out, like, okay, how do you take peace from being this cool thing that you've got into this thing that you can tell the sales agent, they can be stoked on it. You can use that, one-on-one to get them into it, but then they've got something to take away with them, tangible, and be like, this is okay. Okay, I can see it in this store, and this store. Then you've got someone out there trying to put it into stores for you and saying, hey, James, I'm going to need that product. I've spoken to these guys. I've shown them your lookbook. They're stoked. They could definitely work for you. And then it creates that expansion.
It's a really good point. And certainly the AI stuff that I've been working through, this prompt engineering, as it's called, and that's been really good, and that should yield some results. Then, like you say, I can have the conversations and people are like, oh yeah, this is amazing. I think for me, it's having more conversations with people. Like, I'm like, okay, that's the thing that I can do, that there's no like barrier on it. And in a way going, okay, I need to find a photographer or a sales agent. It's like, brilliant. Okay, I'll have conversations with more of them until one then goes, yes, I'll do that. I've already filtered out the sales agents, the level that I'd want to speak to anyway. So it's not like, oh, just speak to anyone and then you pick anyone. You're going, okay, there's that one, and that one. Okay, first of all, which one will speak to me? Okay, those three will speak to me. Who kind of remembers me, or just little bits, like, who do you have that connection with? Because then they're like, oh, there's something in this. Let's go with it. Like, I spoke to an agent from Portugal, and we had a shared interest in tennis, and it's like, he doesn't really know me from Adam. So it's not there in the same way. And you're like, yeah, probably not going to be the one. There has to be that interest from the other person. Has to want to get in the boat and be like, yeah, I'm up for this. Sure. I'm up for this. Let's crack on. But probably going to London. I'm back in London, going to go in May. You're going to look around and be like,
okay, are you going to be in London when I'm in Portugal? I need to look at
when
my
are you coming to Portugal?
I'm coming over to Portugal in May. I won't go through my calendar whilst we're recording. But yeah, I bet you.
Well, hopefully not.
You'll be over here and I'll be
hopefully
there.
Hopefully not. But
I am down south. It's written Cascais.
Yeah, so near Lisbon. Oh, well, if you're there, then we'll come and see you. So hopefully you.
Okay, cool.
You will be there when I am also here.
I'll send you my dates.
But I think I've just got to get to London or other places. Like, when I was in Amsterdam, I was like, I could totally do a store here. Then you just got to find the person, I guess. But it might not be you open a store. It might be there's a store that stocks it, and you're like, Will you? But you still need the thing. You still need like the.
Yeah. But I think that's a first step, isn't it? Like getting it into a store. But I imagine that's what your sales agent would do for you. But you could probably do
Yeah. I think.
for your first ones.
I think they do it so well. They probably do it better.
There's also a good separation. It's like me with Robin doing my PR for me. If I'm there saying, "Hey, check out Barnfield, it's great," like, yeah, you would think that. Whereas if someone else is saying it for you, then and they already have the contacts, it makes a difference.
It does. So, so I'm looking forward to. I've been writing as well as prompt engineering. I've got a bunch of essays and themes for podcasts and a list of people that I want to start recording conversations with. That's what I'm interested in most.
I feel like I can from here I can see like this clear. These are the steps you need to take to because I don't think you're stuck. If I take it that if you're pleased with those samples that you've got, then they're ready to go into production. You could get caught up on tweaking a little bit, or you could just go for it. So let's put that aside and say those samples, you're ready to go into production with those. So then it's like, okay, well, why am I going into production? I've got to go into production in order to fulfill a need. And then it's okay, well, getting a sales agent to go out there and say, James, these 3 shops are interested in stocking your stuff. Cool. Now I know the quantities I need to create. Boom. And you'll get it done.
What I want to do, and as we talk about this, is like I just want to open a store. Like that's the thing for me because I have such confidence in it.
But where are you going to open it?
That's the question.
Because you've just said that Portugal isn't the place, but that's where you live.
Yeah, Lisbon would be an interesting spot, and I did always think Lisbon, but it's then in a new city for us. But then there are just the level of tourists here. Tourist season here in Porto, oh my gosh, it's phenomenal. And you're like, wow, okay. Do you have somewhere, just gave me loads of thoughts, but it's like, wow, people they come here and they want to buy something. And
to take home.
There's nothing. There is nothing.
Yeah. Okay.
It's totally bonkers. It just is a country that isn't set up in the way that.
It's going to be my first time, so I'm going to be interested to see. It's going to be interesting to see the stuff you've been talking about. I've got a whiskey bar on my list of places to check out in Lisbon. I'll send it over to you, see if you know about it.
There's one that I do, so it might be the same one. There are all these little pockets, and there's something about it. Oh, great! Hopefully we're here when you're here. It's cool.
Well, I'll send you over my dates, but I need to run because I have a haircut in 15 minutes.
Very good. Okay. There's still a bunch of stuff to talk about in the next episode because you've had loads of samples. So
yeah, I should have more to talk about. I've got packaging well underway, if not sorted. Shawl neck blazer, first sample. I know what I'm doing with the changes with that, or some of the changes. It will be interesting actually to speak to you very, very briefly. I think that there's a battle between smart and casual, and there needs to be the right balance. And at the moment, it's losing the balance. You be able to see.
I saw it on the first picture that you sent the other day.
So I don't know if you can see there, but it's got double vents at the back. That was because I love a double vent, right? But then it's not actually until I see it in person, I'm like, okay, no, it's losing the battle.
Yeah.
That should be a single vent at most. Patch pockets at the front rather than welt, and slightly longer, slightly bring in the shawl, all that sort of stuff. But as far as a first sample goes, this is only a 12. This isn't even a sample.
This is a JC. This is a JC one.
It's his pattern.
He's very good.
And it's a lady called Dee who's stitched it up as a 12, and she's obviously very skilled.
Fantastic.
One of the things can you see all the bulk up here? So that's because the inside pockets are welted with the boiled wool. So we'll change that to welting it with the silk.
Yeah.
And that will change that. There's sleeve head roll on this and not on the other side. Sleeve head roll has to go. It needs to be softer. Doesn't match. So it's great. I'm quite excited about it, just in terms of it being this representation of being in a place where things are moving
Yeah.
forwards. In you know, and also because I put it on. God, I've got to go. But I put it on, and Amy started commenting on it, and I was like, listen, just so you know, my responses are going to be really prickly, because I always feel vulnerable when I've designed this thing, it's been made, and now I'm wearing it, and do I feel a bit of an idiot in it if it's not quite right? But it's not that. What I realized was that up until now, if something wasn't right, to try to communicate what was wrong with it, to try to get it fixed, was such a gamble as to whether I was getting that right or not. And that's why it took 7 samples to get the Lawrence right, because it was me figuring out, okay, I haven't communicated this quite right. Here's another sample. Balls, I've communicated that right, but now this has changed. Whereas with this setup, I feel like I could speak to JC and just be like, well, I did. I sent him a video of me wearing it, and I was like, you know, this proportion isn't quite right. I'm losing this battle. He's like, yeah, I'm with you on all of it.
Jace, he's. I mean, there are some other great pattern cutters, but for me, JC,
sure,
you know,
yeah, and he definitely seems to understand me and what I'm trying to achieve.
He's fantastic. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much again for the introduction.
You're welcome.
So, right, I'm out of here. I'll come back to you next week,
amazing.
looking
Sean
much sharper.
Sean and sharp.
All right, I'll catch you then.
Bye.
Cheers,
Bye.
James. Bye-bye.